we're back here on our program, and we are talking about herbal medicine today. Gotthard?
Preach Kailash.
Yes, Honorable.
The Caribbean and the global community is in a debate right now on medical marijuana. You know, marijuana has been stigmatized because of its recreational use. However, you know more than most people the medicinal side of marijuana. What is your take on this whole argument?
Well, I believe that the politicians are wasting time. I mean, you're just wasting time. It's just a waste of time. Come on. I mean, that's the Green Revolution. When you look at the economic side of it, you know, America, you know, used to fly down to St. Vincent about 40 years ago and take all the marijuana, bring it to St. Lucia, and then fly it to the universities in America, where they actually studied the effects of it, took the seeds, developed their own strains and their own breeds, right? And actually developed also what you call the technology, because the most effective thing is the technology, you know. A machine to extract CDB or THC from, or just to see the profile of it. A paper chromatography or liquid or gas chromatography machine.
Gas chromatography, yeah.
You understand that? So then the technology, even from the vaporizer that they use in the hospital, oh, you've got cancer, you can eat, you need to use the herb. So they've created a vaporizer. So America is well positioned to sell the technology, to sell the herbs, to sell the variety, right? And also then to utilize even the same way they use us for bananas and for sugarcane, to plant and farm, and then they process and create the end products and
pharmaceutical
that they sell back to us as a people. So I think that the whole debate is like I don't really debate that, because the scientific evidence is there, and especially as a Rastafari in St. Lucia, I personally, you know, have interviewed people who have witnessed, you know, the police pulling up with a van full of marijuana, and after they empty the marijuana, a dead Rasta man is underneath it with blood because he was shot on the plantation. So you are not only looking at this thing from the perspective of medicine, but also from the perspective of a sacrament, of a people who were abused and people who were disenfranchised, whose whole future was destroyed for the use of that drug, and then that herb, and now all of a sudden it's good for medicine, and you're going to just legalize it for medicine. No, I mean, you have to first and foremost consider the lives that you have disrupted. How is it you're going to repair, which is in the form of reparations for that disruption? And when it comes to the medicinal use of marijuana, we should not wait for someone to give us the right to use that. I've had clients who come to me with lung cancer. One of the cancers with the worst prognosis, right? And they come with an oxygen tank to our retreat, because we have a retreat in St. Lucia. And even 7 days, that's gone, and they're walking up and down the hill, and they could take care of themselves just through the marijuana extracts, or just through juicing the green plant, just blending the buds and the seeds and the leaves and straining it and drinking it. You understand? So the efficacy of cannabis as a medicine was on the pharmacopoeia of medicines for years, for hundreds of years. It was only when the drug war began in America that they removed it off the pharmacopoeia of medicine. And as the Honorable said earlier about the research gone into the production of medicines, before, your pharmacists used to mix all the medicines. So when you go to the pharmacist, you would have an empty jug or an empty glass jar, an amber one, and then they would mix up the cough syrup and give it to you to remove your mucus.
The chemist.
Yeah, man, the chemist.
Yes.
Right, so now they've removed that from the hands of the chemist and given all the rights to the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
Right, so then we have to re-examine that and don't be followers. If it is that we had actually implemented, because look at now, recreational use. Alcohol is still just decriminalized because you must have a license to sell it. And it's known that it's intoxicating, right? So you have a license to sell intoxicating liquor.
Yeah.
What does intoxication means? Poisoning. When you toxic.
Over concentration.
No, it's intoxicating, it's poisonous.
Yeah.
Right? So you have a license to sell something to someone that's toxic. Okay? That's dangerous. And then you have cigarette. and that you put on the cartoon that says, well, you have a dead man lying down on a stretcher with a tag, COPD, lung cancer, whatever. We know the destructive nature of these things, yet still, we still sell them. We know that soft drinks and sodas and junk foods are filled with sugar, and already we have children 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 with diabetes, right? Yet still we sell it on the school compounds. So we have to be honest, and our decisions must not be as a result we follow what America is doing up there, because America, you cannot blame America. America is trying to position itself in a strong economic position. You cannot blame them. But what are we doing in the Bahamas? We're discussing whether you should legalize it for medicinal use. I mean, I believe that we are wasting time in these Caribbean countries.
Is it decriminalized in St. Lucia?
Well, not yet. Not yet. But they're working on the policies, because no one wants to step on Washington's feet, so everyone is trying to see how best they could actually, and also decriminalize it, and still a set of people in society will be able to get the license to actually grow it. You understand? So this is a very technical thing, and as I say, it's just us as a people. Just let's create a system of healthcare that helps the suffering people. So everything that we're discussing, if we're just looking at what's the best for the patient, what's best for you to remove that mucus, right? And we just give it to you. It took Dr. Sanjay Gupta to come and say that marijuana is good for schizophrenia and people with fits and epilepsy, for us to believe it, when the Rastaman sung about it for years. So you're saying that Priest Kailash is not intelligent enough to come and tell you, well, this is good for that, and because some other person come and tell you from some other country is good enough? We have to examine and understand that our people are very intelligent beings also. And what we produced in the Bahamas and in St. Lucia and in Jamaica and in Trinidad, they are as good or better than what is produced in these so-called first world countries. Because the majority of these institutions, they are governed by someone with Bahamian roots.
Priest Kailash, why would you use marijuana or cannabis for a sacrament, as a sacrament?
Well, you see, what marijuana does, it diverts 80% of the blood supply to the brain upon you taking it. That's why your eye actually gets red. Okay, so what it does now, it concentrates, because your blood carries the oxygen and the food, the glucose, the blood that the brain actually utilizes. So it concentrates the energy, and the bulk of your energy supplies to your brain. So it increases brain function. So as a Rastafari, we would say, well, it feeds the spirit. So it's a spiritual herb. It's a sacrifice, a sacrament. So we utilize it in a manner whereby, you make, offering, and then you bring yourself to this, from a third level of operation to a fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh level of operation when it comes to the spiritual plane. So we utilize it as Rastafari, as a sacrament. Just like, in India you have all these Hindus and all these Buddhas and the monks and everybody up in the hill, and that's all they do. They just smoke the marijuana as a sacrament. So we as Rastafari have utilized it over the years for that. And we should not negate or neglect to look at the whole benefits of it as something when it comes to the manufacturing sector. Because we produce no oil here in the Bahamas, nor in the Caribbean. So we shouldn't be afraid of putting the oil companies out of business with their plastics that contains, bisphenol A, BPA, which is a xenoestrogen that they know actually promotes breast cancer in human. You could leave a plastic bottle full of water in your car and close in the hot sun, and you're repeating this over months and months, you could develop prostate cancer just by doing that. Are you aware that the plastics in your plastic bottles contains chemicals that's known to be carcinogenic? All right? Are you aware of that? So then, if you could produce a plastic bottle, not out of the plastic, but out of the fibers of the hemp plant, wouldn't this be more beneficial? At a point in time, it was a law that the people in the Caribbean planted marijuana because it fuels, the sales for the ship.
Yes.
Jet,
Say so.
yeah, jet engine fuel and all these different types of things because the combustibility of it is much more stable. So we have to look at this thing more on a wider level than that myopic view of people smoking marijuana on the streets because they smoke it anyway. You know, so why don't the government begin to tax it and make some money from it? You know, the very first time that Colorado legalized it, decriminalized it, the next year they had a surplus, right, that they could have utilized for people in drug abuse and these type of institutions. You know, so we just have to be realistic about it and see how we move
Kailash,
forward.
someone like you in St. Lucia, with your training and experience, what do you bring to public policy in St. Lucia?
Well, I mean, the government is the people. That's the first thing that we must understand. So over the years, I have been sitting on the commission appointed by the cabinet for non-communicable and chronic illnesses. I've sat on that. I work with the Prime Minister's office where we initiated the Caribbean Wellness Day, right? We also, you know, work with different committees, reparation committee, cabinet appointed, different committees, yes. But at the end of the day, the government is the people. In 2006, when I returned into St. Lucia from Antigua, St. Lucia was #1 in the world with diabetes, like the Bahamas is presently. Right now, look on the charts, it's not number 10, number 15, number 20. It's all the way down because of over a decade of work. You know, we went into the schools. We had inter-secondary school plant-based cooking competitions, made the children utilize indigenous foods creatively, and within an hour they had a dessert, an appetizer, a main course, and a dessert, and it was awesome. So a child that never used to eat vegetables, you know, you expose them to it, let them understand and explain why should they utilize that, was the benefit to them, so they learned how to utilize it. And because you made it something fashionable, because you're on TV, you know, and you're cooking and everybody is loving it, you know, within 10 years, right now, the diabetes in St. Lucia has declined. The society have changed. People are a lot more health conscious. You know, I have a television program in St. Lucia. Everybody is calling about herbs. You understand? The Prime Minister himself of the country gave his testimony. You know, so now it's more accepted in the country, the whole aspects of herbs. So even if, you know, politically, because you know how politics goes, you won't get the credit for implementing certain things. But as long as you know that the populace, that the government of the country, which is the people, you know, they are actually changing. Everything on the shelf is changing. That's why I'm here in the Bahamas. We're here in the Bahamas because right now Bahamas is #1 in the world per capita. You know, so I am establishing a ministry in the Bahamas. You know, we also registered a company that I'm going to, you know, be the CEO and president of, specifically to bring forward the knowledge. Because when you have a child, no parent loves to see their child suffering. When you have a child at the age of 10, that's a diabetic. And type 1 diabetes, meaning that the pancreas, the cells in the pancreas now are actually beginning to attack the beta cells, the cells in the pancreas producing the insulin. That means that that 10 and that 8-year-old child is on insulin. So by the time, in 5 years, that child could end up with kidney failure. So you're looking at dialysis for a 15-year-old child, right? That's going to have to sit down by a machine and watch all the blood come out of their body, go through a machine to get filtered out, and come back into the physical structure. What cost does that put upon our system? Because in St. Lucia, in a private hospital, it will cost an individual $1,500 EC, about $600 US per session of dialysis.
Yeah.
And they must take 3 sessions per week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So you're looking at $1,800 per week. Multiplied by 10 weeks is what? $18,000. So for the year, imagine the cost on our healthcare system when we could implement strategies and policies. Because why? It's a lifestyle disease. So we need to begin to legislate, make it illegal to sell soft drinks at the schools. You know, make it mandatory that schools serve 75% of the plate supposed to be of some fruits and some fresh vegetables. You know, so these things are important.
So we're talking, this man is an agriculturalist. You're talking about real food security and how you're talking about wellness.
Wellness, yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Wellness and a whole lot of diseases are caused by mucus,
Mucus, yes.
inflammation. In this book, how do you get rid of inflammation, or how do you preclude inflammation?
Well, first and foremost, you must understand inflammation, because you have acute inflammation and you have chronic inflammation.
Yes.
So an inflammatory process is just your immune system eliciting a response to deal with a perceived danger. All right? So then if you get a knock on your arm, it's going to swell, you're going to get an increase in blood supply, it's going to get very painful. Why? Because you have an acute immune response in that area. But if you knock it every day for the next 3 months, you're going to develop some type of condition in that joint that you might call arthritis, which is basically inflammation of your joints. You understand that? So then, when you could differentiate between acute inflammation, so if somebody has an acute inflammation, you could give them maybe some dandelion green drink. You could give them some what they call guinea hen weed, what they call gully root, guinea hen weed. It's in the book.
Okay,
you know, stinging nettle, you know, vervine, you know, all these things, they are very good anti-inflammatories, right? You could also look at turmeric, the real turmeric root. Yeah. You know, that's an anti-inflammatory. Even your local ginger is also an anti-inflammatory, right? But then you have chronic inflammation, whereby you have someone who has gout, that's chronic inflammation. Someone who probably have colitis, which is inflammation in the colon, appendicitis, inflammation of the appendix, gingivitis, inflammation of the gums, right? So then all this itis is just different types of inflammation. So it's basically identifying the specific type of inflammation, the nature of it, what part of the physical structure it actually affects, and then we see how is it going to help to regulate your immune system to effectively deal with that inflammation. So we're not teaching people just to go and just drink a bush because you have this, or drink a bush because you have that. It's first and foremost understanding knowledge, understanding what is happening within your physical structure. And then what lifestyle can you adapt, working with your healthcare professional, right? What lifestyle you could adapt to actually help to eradicate, not maintain or paint over or try to help you live with, but eradicate that condition.
Let's take a break here. Godfrey has another question raring to go. We take this final break. We'll come back.